artist to the stage, please.
Welcome back to the third episode in our mini-series. Today we'll be diving deeper into one of the myths we unpacked in episode 1 of the podcast.
Indeed.
So the question for today is, why is theatre so white? Right, and the reason this question came about and we wanted to dive deeper into it was because we were looking for some more guests within academia to come onto the episode. And I guess it's only when you look outside of like your norm and your bubble that you realise how white the theatre industry
that seems to be
really
a common
is.
denominator. Yeah.
So I guess we can kind of interview each other in this podcast episode. So we'll start with, do you feel represented within the field of theatre?
Now, there are a few ways you can go about this. For me, it depends on which country I'm talking about. Like, obviously, when I'm in Indonesia, it's majority filled with Indonesians, so I feel represented. Although, if I go deeper into that, as someone who went to an international school and who feels more comfortable performing in English, then I can feel a bit underrepresented because most of the art is in Indonesian, which makes sense. But I'm like, there are people who can speak it better and more confidently than me, and therefore I feel, a bit uncomfortable to kind of go for those roles because I feel like I can express myself better in English, which is bad. I'm a bit ashamed about that, but such is life. But then here, obviously, I feel like a minority because the theatre industry is much more white in the UK. Yeah. And so I guess it depends on where or like which country you're talking about.
Yeah, for me, I'd say it's also, it's more, it depends where you look. As in, there has been an upsurge, definitely, of like increased diversity, especially with like black actors, black performers. Yeah. But it still is the case that like if I work on a project, it's majority white. Or like if I step into like my seminar groups, I can literally be either the only black person or the only person of colour in it. Right. And for the most part, if we're being taught on the degree, it is by white members of academia. So it is there. Like when I watch TV shows now, I kind of laugh sometimes because I can see almost the forced effort to like include these characters, and you can sort of notice the tropes that's happening. So like it's happening, but it obviously can be a lot better.
But can I also say, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but when I'm thinking of like minority actors being represented in Hollywood or things like that, I feel that it's even better for black actors than Asian actors because I just heard that Michelle Yeoh is the first Asian actor to be nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars. And that was just this year. And also like on screen, of course there's still more white actors, but I still see black actors represented. But as an Asian person, I'm like, I don't see you. And if I see someone, it's probably a Chinese actor or, Malaysian, Korean, because Korea has its like a pretty big entertainment industry. So where are the Indonesians?
Yeah. It's like this weird intersection or ladder of diversity. It's sort of like we need to create diversity. So who do we start with? Yeah. I think even within like black theatre or like the black creative industries, the target is on working class blackness, and representations of working class blackness is what sort of seems to get the most attention in terms of like tipping the diversity field. But there's this whole breadth within every category of diversity. So it's like you said, it's a start. Yeah. But there's definitely tropes, whether it's characters, themes, storylines that get stuck to. Yeah. That I think there's room to break away from.
For sure. But can I just ask, when you say there's a focus on working class black artists, why do you think that is?
Oh, it's a good question. I think, as weird as it sounds to say, is why would you focus on the middle class or like the rich people? I don't.
Right. Is it like not enough of a sob story?
Like as bad as that sounds. That is sort of how I see it. It's sort of like, right, we need to get these stories out. What is most exciting, or what do we not know much about, or what's more edgy in a bad way, obviously. So yeah, I think there's just space to develop more scope and more diversity within those groups and intersections.
Yeah, can we not have Asian actors just do like kung fu movies, please?
Exactly, yeah, that's what I
yes,
mean.
thank you, Crazy Rich Asians. That is my whole life, that movie.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Has there been any moments where you've particularly felt outed or like an outsider, whether it's like being an international student, being a global majority?
Ooh.
Hello, emails.
Whoops, hold on, die emails. It's fine.
I can start. So
yeah, sorry.
First year was challenging in some ways. It's not an abnormal experience for me to feel or be the only person of global majority or one of in art spaces. I've kind of been used to it through dance, especially when I'm like doing classical training, like ballet, contemporary. It is a norm. Like going to auditions, I was pretty much the only like person of global majority at auditions, so it's not something I'm unused to. But I guess being put into like the new university setting, you become like visible again,
right?
And, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's kind of like put forward again.
So even if we were talking about like race, we're talking about Race Week, and it's like we're talking about shows we've watched, and I was like, oh yeah, what was I even talking about, like Top Boy or something like that, which like to me everyone's watched Top Boy, but then it's like everyone's like, what's Top Boy? Like, you know, those weird moments where it's like you don't.
Yeah, because I think for me it's similar to that in that I don't feel there's any overt like racism or like, oh, you shouldn't do this or whatever, because, you know, people are trying to be civilized in class. But I do feel there are many times where I don't get what's happening, not because I didn't learn anything or I'm uncultured or whatever that means, but because there are some things that are just important to a particular culture, or the very normal, like you watch it as a child, things like that you don't watch in other places, the same way that, you know, there are some things I watch that they'll know nothing about. But when most of the people in the room know what's happening and they're laughing at that thing or whatever, you do feel like an outsider in a way. And it's normal. Like, I don't blame them for that, because if they studied in Indonesia, it would be the same thing, I bet. But it's not comfortable. And it doesn't feel good to not be able to contribute to the conversation just because you don't know. And then you start feeling like, oh, should I have researched that? Should I have done this? But how could you have known that it would have come up if it's not part of, you know, the required reading or required watching or whatever? Yeah.
Nice.
Similar.
Is there opposite? Is there a moment where you felt particularly represented in theatre?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I don't quite know how to go about it, but when something Asian or about Indonesia comes up, which is rare, but it does come up sometimes, I feel particularly able to talk about it.
Right. Like,
this was just something quite interesting, but the other day there was a name that I believe was like an Indian name or something in a reading, and one of my friends said, oh, if Talia thinks it's said that, pronounced that way, then we should probably listen to her. And I was like, I don't know how to pronounce Indian names any better than probably anyone else, but I'm just assuming. But it's just funny how someone said, you know, like, I'm the authority of that. So it doesn't make me feel any better or worse, but I think it's just like there are moments like that which are kind of funny that come up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like mine is more mainstream. It's like a weird thing. Like, I'm gonna go back to Hamilton, of course, but Hamilton was like it took over my life for 3-4 years, and I think
you said 5 the other way.
Maybe it's 5, guys. Maybe it's 5.
Yeah. And
I think it was almost this unexplained reason. Like, I didn't know. I just loved it. But I think in hindsight, it was just. Obviously there's debate, is it true representation, is it this, is it that, but I think on like the surface level, what you see on the stage, that was just like crazy to me. Like, it was so wow. Like, I was like, I could be in Hamilton, because obviously at that time I was considering like actually pursuing like performance full time, so I was like, wow, that's a show where there's literally a role for me, like as a dancer, like as a performer. So yeah, mainstream, but like I think a lot of people feel the same way when it comes to Hamilton.
I guess mainstream. I didn't really think of it that generally, but I would say I don't think about staged shows as much, not because I don't want to do theater, but because it's just like I just accept kind of what's there. But then when I look at movies where it's like millions and millions of people, like it's more accessible, I guess, in a way. I really am so obsessed with Michelle Yeoh right now. Like, I already talked about her, but I'm saying she's giving me hope. Basically, the whole, like, Crazy Rich Asians cast, the things they're doing now, like, it's crazy, and I feel seen, and I feel like, oh, I could be in a movie maybe one day. Not that I really want to be a film actor or something, but just the thought is comforting. If I ever wanted to, then maybe I could. Yeah.
Nice. I think to wrap up, we've both sort of mentioned it, but change is happening. I think we can both agree that we want to see more.
Of course.
More, please.
We are not happy with everything yet.
Especially behind the scenes as well.
We will not settle.
It always starts with on stage. So yeah, in the future, we would love to see more. But for anyone who is studying their studies or thinking about it and you are from the global majority, the change is happening. So we can reassure you in that. It's not totally inaccessible. There will be challenges, you might doubt yourself, but yeah, do it.
Yeah, my hope is just that there is going to be a very popular, you know, show or something that has, like, you know, like another Hamilton, but then we need more of those, because then I think when it's something becomes very popular and mainstream, then people are able to go, you know what, I am not going to be losing money over casting people from the global majority.
Nice. All right, well, thanks for listening, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Don't forget to check out all our previous episodes, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yes.
Bye.